What's up, guys? Welcome back to MMA After Dark. Thanks so much for being here. I'm your host, Paul. Another episode of MMA After Dark. Before we get started, though, tap that like button, hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it sure means a whole lot to me. And all your support is always greatly appreciated. We're going to be talking UFC Fight Night, Blanchfield versus Barber, which turned into UFC Fight Night, Gamrot versus Klein, because the main event, or was supposed to be main event, never got liftoff. There was apparently some sort of medical emergency, some sort of issue with Maycee Barber. Apparently, right before the walkouts, I took a quick break after the Gamrot Klein fight and got some food. Came back out, and then I heard Fitzgerald in DC and Lorosenko going back to them, and it looked like something had interrupted something because I was prepared to hear the walkouts, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And then I creep back out to my TV, and then I see the little headline that the fight is off because of a medical emergency with Maycee Barber. And right now, all we know is pretty much bits and pieces and secondhand information. I know they interviewed Erin Blanchfield right after, and she disclosed that Hunter Campbell said that she was having a seizure of some sort, and that was pretty much all she knew. So they did a locker room interview, which was kind of funny because I forget who. I think it was Lorosenko that said that Erin Blanchfield is probably in tears right now, and then they go back to Megan Levy, and there she is, just kind of like almost like she expected it. There was part of Erin that didn't seem like she was that surprised about what had occurred, but and then you fast forward to the post-fight press conference, and she did not mince words for what she felt about Maycee Barber. Something to the effect of her whole life is a mess, and she needs to clean up every aspect of her life because this girl is just a complete mess, and she just kind of left it at that, and also made it very clear that her and her team will not be pushing for this fight to be rebooked. She made it really clear, said, hey, look, this girl's not on my level, never was to begin with, so no, I'm not going to entertain a rebooking of this fight. And you go into social media right after her comments, and it was interesting, the comments were pretty split down the middle. There were some that were pretty critical of her comments, saying that, lost all respect for Erin, and then there was others that were like, hey, no, this, she just told it like it is, a respect to her. I didn't have too much of an issue with some of the comments she said, and I'm going to tell you why. We only look at what's in front of us when we see these the videos, the press conferences, or immediately right after, when these guys and ladies get these cameras and microphones stuck right in their face, right after a fight, or right after a loss, right after a victory, or even something like this. And emotions are always running high, especially post-fight, actual fight. I know there was an actual fight in this case, but Erin, someone that and not even necessarily just Erin, but these men and women, they dedicate months of their lives away from their families, grueling training camps, weight cuts, all to give their best effort for 15 or 25 minutes for these brief moments of their life, but all the build-up leading up to it, only to have it ripped away from you in a matter of seconds. I mean, that's got to sting, right? Erin, who came in on weight, no issues there, came in prepared, full of confidence, ready to go, no issues leading up to the fight. A lot of trash talk between the ladies before that, so yeah, I was pretty excited to see this, because another criticism we hear a lot is like, women's MMA is so boring and there's no fire and there's no juice behind it. But we had these two ladies that were talking some trash, and it looked like we were in for an exciting fight. So, unfortunately it didn't happen, but as I previously mentioned, Erin goes through all this work, puts in all this work, all this training camp, cutting weight, right? And then is told that, hey, fight's not going to happen. Oh, and then here, right after, moments after being told that, gets a microphone stuck in your face. And so how are you feeling right now, Erin, about this? Well, I mean, of course she's not going to be feeling great. Of course she's going to be upset and frustrated and probably not going to have the nicest things to say about her, regardless of the reasons, right? We know Maycee came in overweight, so I mean that had to kind of rub Erin the wrong way a little bit. I know fighters get a percentage of the purse after that, but that always seems to rub fighters the wrong way. When their opponent does come in overweight, not able to cut it. Right, it's deemed to be unprofessional and just not acceptable in a lot of the fighters' eyes, especially Erin, who has always been on weight, always come in prepared, ready to go. Just complete professional all the time. And Erin has always been a fighter that you can just tell she's full of confidence. She does not second guess herself. She goes in these fights expecting to win. She goes in expecting to implement her game, dictate terms or dictate the fight on her own terms, which by and large she's had pretty good success doing throughout her UFC career. Just the one loss so far to a very, very, very good fighter in Night-Blanchfield, who just recently lost to Shevchenko, but just a complete beast of a fighter. So, I'm not going to be too critical about Erin for this. I liked a little bit of the attitude. I liked a little bit of the fire, a little bit that like, hey, look, like, this girl's not going to get any, mercy from me. On the other hand, too, she didn't exactly, wish death upon her or anything like that. She wasn't, I don't think she stepped over any crazy lines as far as, that's concerned. I mean, it would have been one thing if, it had confirmed it had been some like life-threatening situation where, she's in the hospital currently fighting for her life, I mean, then, maybe you're a little more careful of your comments in that case. But I mean, by all accounts, I don't think it was quite anything like that. Did this have to do with something to do with the weight cut? Was she struggling with, some health issues leading up to this? We know she had been out for over a year to deal with some health concerns, and there could have been some mental health stuff going. We don't know, right? It's all pure speculation at this point, but we do know that Maycee Barber has been out for an extended period of time prior to this fight being booked because of some health issues, right? Whatever that might be. Hopefully, she does get right. I do think that she isn't, by and large, an exciting fighter. She's a pretty good addition to the women's division, but unfortunately, this doesn't look like one we're going to be able to see ever again, guys. Okay, and I also don't have a problem with Erin not pushing for that fight to be rebooked, based on some other reasons as well. She also felt, and she made this very clear in post-fight, that this girl's not on my level. So, pretty much she was fortunate to get this fight booked against me to begin with. But now after this, the missed weight and then the last-minute pullout, I'm not interested anymore. I'm on to bigger and better things. And, I don't have a huge issue with that, also due to their strength of schedules. And I want to talk about that in a minute before we get into the co-main event. So let's compare Erin Blanchfield and Maycee Barber's last 5 fights. Okay. So let's look at Erin Blanchfield, her last 5 fights. Last fight before this, win against Rose Namajunas, former champion. Okay, that was back in November. Before that, she did take the loss against Night-Blanchfield, that title elimination fight, right? I mean, she gave it best effort, but man, just could not break through, could not find any openings for takedowns against Fiorot, who was just masterfully moved, circled, right, and just stick and moved and just pretty much dictated terms on Erin for that fight. But Erin didn't quit, kept trying, lasted the full 5 rounds. Very tough fight against a very tough opponent. Before that, Taila Santos, no longer in the UFC. However, Taila Santos did take Valentina Shevchenko to the brink of defeat, split decision in that fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Not a lot of people remember that fight. Very, very close and competitive fight. Taila Santos nearly pulled that off against Valentina Shevchenko. Erin Blanchfield beat her, unanimous decision, 3-rounder. Very impressive win. Before that, Fight against Jessica Andrade, another former champion. Second round subturf. We know that Andrade has some suspect, and is a liability on the ground. But again, former champion, always dangerous with these, has put away many ladies with these bombs that she carries, right? And then after that, we get into the Molly McCann fight, who, I'm going to say that was an impressive win. I mean, has it stood the test of time as an impressive win? Molly McCann, who had just retired, we could say probably not. However, after that fight, Molly McCann, or before that fight, I should say, Molly McCann was soaring. Her and Patty had the whole, I don't know what you call it, like a package deal kind of thing. They were getting a lot of promos from Barstool Sports, right? She was starting to develop a pretty good fan base and pretty solid fighter on the feet with stand-up, right? Subbed her pretty easy in the first round. That is Erin Blanchfield's last 5 fights. Her last 5 fights include 2 former champions and 2 former title contenders, and then Molly McCann. Now let's look at Maycee Barber's last 5 fights. Previous fight, before this fight was booked. Win against Caitlin Sermonara, formerly Caitlin Chikagian. Good win. Good win. A great win? No, I wouldn't say so. Before that, she fought Amanda Hebos in June of 2023. That's a good win, but Amanda Hebos we know as a lot of talent, but a very streaky fighter, a lot of up and downs. She has a hard time stringing together consistent wins. Good win, but again, a great win. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. I don't think so in my opinion. Before that, in 2023 of March, she fought Andrea Lee, who is now out of the UFC. I think she might have finished with a 500 record, if memory serves. So, Andrea Lee was one of those fighters that always brings it, always came prepared, but just was never going to be anything dynamic. She just wasn't. Before that, July 2nd, 2022, against Jessica Ai. Again, another fighter that has had a lot of trouble stringing together consistent wins. Very streaky fighter. And then before that, fight against Montana De La Rosa. None of those ladies are going to be title contenders or champions. I feel pretty good about saying that. Those are some good wins, but if we're comparing resume, strength of schedule, I mean, what are we talking about here? When you look at that, it does make you kind of stop and think, like, why was this fight booked to begin with, right? You could point to the fact that Maycee Barber was on I guess actually technically is still on a winning streak. Looks like a 6-fight winning streak before her previous loss. You have to go way back to when she fought Alexa Grasso in 2021. So when you string together a winning streak like that, you're going to keep climbing the ranks, especially, when there's a lot of hit and miss within the division. But, from a strength of schedule perspective, I don't blame Erin for saying, like, hey, this girl's not on my level. Like, I'm out here fighting former champions and former title contenders that were like on the cusp of becoming champions, right? And so I do think that Erin is in a class above Maycee Barber. Now, is that to say that Maycee Barber couldn't have won this fight? No. I mean, we don't know and we never will know, it seems, unfortunately, right? She does have good striking, good ground and pound, but Erin's takedowns and are just world-class. She has a world-class ground game, and also she has started to improve a little bit more in her striking. I don't even think she's really both these ladies aren't really even in their physical prime yet. So Erin still has a lot of time to develop. She's 26, and really started breaking through when she was like 22, 23 years old. So, I mean, she started catching fire at an early age. She first caught my attention when she fought Miranda Maverick way back in December 2021. I was just really impressed with how fluid her motions were and how there was not a lot of wasted movements. Everything was purposeful, right? Her striking, was good enough to just gain some entries to takedowns. And then once she did, even if Maverick was able to escape, she's doing a little bit of striking in the clinch and boom, right back into the takedown, single leg, double leg, whatever it might be. So really impressive stuff from Erin Blanchfield. She really strung together a solid win streak before running into Night-Blanchfield. So what is next then for Erin Blanchfield? Because we're going to focus on that because currently there's a lot of questions about Maycee Barber. And we don't really know when we're going to be able to see her again. Right now, let's take a look at the rankings in the women's flyweight division. So right now, we have the queen at the top of the throne, Valentina Shevchenko, as champion. After that, we have Natalia Silva, who just recently took that #1 spot. After that, we have #2, Night-Blanchfield, who again just lost to Valentina Shevchenko. Just couldn't really seem to get going, couldn't seem to get out of first gear against Valentina. After that, we have Alexa Grasso sitting at #3, and then we get to Erin at #4. So there are some potential matchups there for Erin, right? We could go Alexa Grasso. They've never fought before, right? I think that would be that fight would make sense to book 3 versus 4, but we also have another contender right there at #1 who has not fought Erin Blanchfield. Now, Erin's ready for a fight currently. Is there any way we could get a quick turnaround against either Alexa Grasso or Natalia Silva? If so, I'd be all for it. I wouldn't even mind seeing Erin get that title eliminator shot again against Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva is dynamic on the feet. Her last fight against Alexa Grasso, very impressive. She had Alexa Grasso just confused, questioning herself, frustrated for almost that entire fight. And I've become a Natalia Silva fan. Her striking and movements, she circles around the cage like she's salsa dancing. She's moving her hips. She's throwing beautiful feints and just picking her opponents apart. Did that against a former champion in Alexa Grasso. Her striking is dynamic, and she is lightning fast. You gotta love how she fights. I didn't appreciate some of the fan reaction because Grasso has gained a pretty strong fan base. Some accused her of running, which is just ridiculous, just because she was striking and circling and circling and circling. And Alexa Grasso, who I have all the respect in the world for, does not know how to cut off at a cage cut at all, which cost her deeply in this fight. So when you look at that potential matchup, Blanchfield against Silva, Erin has struggled with dynamic strikers. You can look at the Night-Blanchfield fight, who is also just incredibly strong. Her nickname is the Beast, which makes complete sense because I thought Erin was going to win that fight. And then when I saw the face-off and I saw them in the cage when that bell rang, and I saw how Manon just looked noticeably bigger than her, looked almost a full weight class bigger than her, I was like, ooh, this might be a challenge for Erin to find any entries into a takedown for. And while she did find some entries from time to time, Manon just bucked her off like nothing. And she was not able to get that takedown offense going. And then on the feet, well, Manon did what she did. I mean, she is a trained kickboxer, a very good one. She has a very good defensive kind of stance. She moves really well, and she was just able to pick Erin apart because Erin could not find any entries for takedown to get her to the ground, and it remained on the feet. And so you look at that, and you might think, we do a little MMA math here. It's like, well, Natalia's probably going to do the same thing, right? She's probably got a speed. She's even faster than Night-Blanchfield is. She's got power. She's got volume. She's pretty much can do it all on the feet. There's not a whole lot she can do. She's got dynamic kicks. She's got dynamic punching, and she moves beautifully. However, I don't think she in stature is quite as big as Manon Fiorot, and I don't think she carries the same strength as Manon does. I don't think she probably has as strong of a base, a natural base for takedown defense as Manon Fiorot does. And so for that reason, I would like to see this fight, because if Erin can find even one entry for a takedown and get her on the ground just one time, she is going to be in Erin's world, and it is going to be a challenge for Natalya to escape, to get up, and to defend the impending submission that Erin is most likely and definitely going to attempt in multiple ways. We know that, right? That's her game. That's her bread and butter. That's where she's comfortable. That is her world, and once you're in it, you are in a world of trouble. Over the course of 5 rounds, is it a stretch to say that Erin wouldn't be able to get her down there at least 1 or 2 times and potentially work a submission? We'll have to see, right? That's the fight I want to see next for Erin. Natalya Silva against Erin Blanchfield. Book it. I think that's an exciting fight. I think that stylistically, it's a pretty cool matchup, actually. Who would I pick off the top of my head? I need to get back to you on that. But I think the odds would be pretty even going into that fight. Natalya Silva against Erin Blanchfield, that's the fight that needs to be made next. If not, give her Alexa Grasso and see what happens. Moving on to the actual main event that turned into the main event, unbeknownst to us, expecting to see Maycee Barber and Erin Blanchfield, we had Mateusz Gamrot against Ludovic Klein, an unranked Ludovic Klein, coming in against Mateusz Gamrot, who was ranked number 7, I believe, going into this fight. Interesting matchup. It had been said before that Mateusz Gamrot has had trouble getting opponents. And, you know, he is kind of one of these guys that other guys just don't seem to want to fight. He's a tough stylistic matchup for a lot of guys. He has a grapple-heavy approach. He is a guy that once he gets you on the ground, it's very hard to escape. His wrestling and his grappling is just world-class. It really is. If he finds an entry, he will utilize it. He'll take advantage of it. And once he has you on the ground, it is by and large very hard to escape unless he starts to get tired over the course of 3 or 5 rounds. But that's his bread and butter. That's what he likes to go to. And so you had a Ludovic Klein who's pretty much a striker. And a guy that does carry power, moves well. I believe had 95% takedown defense before this fight. But, you know, again, strength of schedule, level of competition previous to this fight, you know, you still had to think that, you know, Gamrot had a good chance of implementing his game, dictating the fight on his terms, which really that's just what this was. This really wasn't much of a competitive fight. You know, I'm not going to say it was a stinker. It was a good fight. It wasn't boring, in my opinion. You know, Mateusz Gamrot has gotten a lot of criticism by MMA fans over the years. And, you know, when I became a fan of Mateusz Gamrot when he fought Arman Tsarukyan back in, I think it was 2022, I want to say. 5-round main event. Some of the most grueling grappling I've ever seen. Just constant back and forth. Both guys attempting to get reversals. Both guys trying to establish dominant position. Both guys looking for entries and Granby rolls and 50-50 positions and just constant movement. Constant movement. 1 through 5 rounds. A little bit of stand-up. Arman was able to land some pretty nasty body kicks to Gamrot, but Gamrot just kept on coming. And eventually we saw Arman's kind of start to fade in that 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, and Gamrot got the unanimous decision, 48-47, unanimous decision victory. And that's, I've watched that fight many times. That's how I've scored it every time as well. But you know, it's interesting because when I saw that fight, I was so impressed with not only Gamrot's ability to grapple and just constantly work for dominant position, right, and not get rattled by really anything grappling related. Just always looking for to establish position, to reverse if on his back. A guy that just really just knew what to do in the grappling department. I was impressed by that, but also his ability to consistently implement that kind of grapple-heavy game plan and have the cardio to keep up with it for 5 rounds. When that fight was over, he looked like he could keep going for a couple more rounds. I was so impressed by his ability to have that type of endurance and stamina over the course of 5 rounds, fighting a fight like that, after receiving some nasty body kicks that probably would have taken out quite a bit of fighters. I mean, Arman was snapping those body kicks nasty. Those are the kind of kicks that just take that wind right out of you and make it even harder to implement a grapple-heavy approach. But he still did. And at that point, I was looking at him like he had Marab-level cardio, wrestling, and just an ability to just consistently stay fresh, round by round by round. But something has happened to Mateusz Gamrot these last couple fights, because his last couple fights have not been 5-round fights. I look back at the Dan Hooker fight, who I really thought that was going to be a pretty easy fight for, probably not easy, but I thought that the odds were in his favor heavily for a reason, right? Dan Hooker, not known as a guy with a lot of good takedown defense, right? He's a pretty much up and down striker, very good striker, tough guy, but I thought Mateusz Gamrot was going to be able to dictate that fight on his terms, use his grapple-heavy approach, and, you know, that'd be all she wrote. I mean, MMA math, right? Well, he did it to Arman, who was just a world-class wrestler, grappler, world-class athlete at that. Shouldn't have any problem with Dan Hooker, right? But he started to fade. He started to fade big time. At the end of the first round even, he's got his arms up against the cage. He's really, really breathing heavy. And I'm like, sitting there watching this, I'm like, what happened to the guy that I saw go a grueling 5 rounds with Arman Tsarukyan and looked like he could keep going? And at the end of that fight, I was like, well, you know, hey, maybe he had a rough camp, rough weight cut. Who knows, right? Dealing with an injury, we just don't know, right? But then now, against a Ludovic Klein, which I really felt Mateusz Gamrot had to get some sort of finish. This is a fight, you're fighting an unranked guy, a tough guy, a guy with some serious skills, but still an unranked fighter. You're at number 7. This is a guy you gotta finish. And while he did win the fight in pretty convincing fashion, I don't think there was any discrepancy or any kind of controversy with the scoring. You know, this was a guy that you just got to finish, because he's just going to continue to float in that kind of 5 to probably 8 ranking. And I don't know who he fights after this. Is he deserving of a top 15 guy? Of course. But I don't see him fighting up in the rankings. If anything, you know, they might give him a guy in the bottom 10 to 15, which, you know, I'm not going to go as far as to say that that's necessarily what he deserves. But, you know, again, a guy in Ludovic Klein, this is a guy you got to put away if you're in the top 10 of one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC, right? So let's look at the top 10 right now, right? We got Islam, current champion, well, you know, by all accounts, going to vacate, move up to welterweight. And I'm sorry, that is happening. I'm not only saying that because this doesn't look like UFC has updated the website yet. But then we got Arman sitting at number 1 contender. Charles Oliveira, number 2. Gaethje, 3. Max Holloway, 4. Poirier, 5. Dan Hooker at 6, who he just previously lost to, and then Gamrot at 7. Paddy Pimblett at 8. Beneil Dariush at 9. Moicano at 10. And then we get into Fiziev, already booked for a fight. Michael Chandler, Benoit Saint Denis, Grant Dawson, Joel Alvarez. I don't see them booking him with anybody above him in the rankings. He just lost to Dan Hooker. Poirier is retiring after he fights Max. They're not going to give him Max Holloway. Max Holloway's too big of a name. Gaethje, I don't see that happening. Gaethje's got bigger things on his mind. If anything, he might be kind of waiting around a bit to see what happens with the title picture. And then we know Oliveira's booked with Ilia Topuria. And then you got Arman Tsarukyan sitting there at number 1. Now, could you run that back? The problem is that he's sitting there at 7. Arman's at number 1. Arman did say he has no problem taking another fight until they see what happens with the title picture. He understands because of what happened previously that, hey, he might have to take another fight before he gets another title shot, or he might have to win a couple more, right? But that first fight was so good, and now that I look at the rankings, I wouldn't hate if they ran that one back. You know, it really all depends on what they want to do with Gamrot. I mean, if it was up to me, I wouldn't hate if they rebooked that fight. Gamrot has at times been on the cusp of being in either a title eliminator or even a championship fight. He is weighed in as a backup fighter in championship fights. So it doesn't seem like the UFC really knows what to do with Mateusz Gamrot, right? Because in one event, they had him weighing in as a backup fighter for a championship fight, right? But then also now they're booking him against unranked guys. It's like they're not sure what to do with him. And I will say he's not great on the mic. He's very dry. He's very just kind of matter of fact. He's not a guy that just creates a big fan base for himself. He's just a really good fighter. But in this day and age, social media, publicity, promos, all that, you got to know how to cut a promo. You got to know how to stir up some controversy when the time is right. You got to know how to trash talk a little bit. And, you know, also his style with the grappling heavy approach, it's hard. It's going to be hard for him to break through again. But as weird as this sounds, as I look at the rankings, I wouldn't mind either seeing him against Arman Tsarukyan again, because the first fight was fantastic. And I'm going to say this, guys, if you haven't watched that fight between them, even if you're not a big fan of grappling, it's a really exciting fight, and it's a fascinating fight. Just all the positions they found themselves, all the reversals, 50-50s, reversals, Grammy rolls. Like, it's not one of these lay-and-pray wrestling, grappling contests. It's really high-level stuff. One of the highest-level grappling matches I've ever seen. So really good stuff. You could also go all the way down to Joel Alvarez at 15. I don't think that's a terrible fight. You know, Joel Alvarez looking to really break through. He's a guy that's really exciting and is primed to make a big splash this year. I wouldn't hate that booking either. I know that they had initially booked him against Benoit Saint Denis, but if they book him against Mateusz Gamrot, hey, like that, I think that's a pretty good fight actually. So I would not hate that by any means. But getting back to the fight itself, this after this fight was called, there's so many fans out there that just have an extreme hate for Mateusz Gamrot, probably for all the reasons I already described. I personally am a fan of him, but I still am going to call it like I see it. I am still very concerned about his ability to maintain that cardio. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's just a product of, maybe him getting a little bit older, although I wouldn't say past his prime by any means. Let's take a look here. But he has definitely not been able to sustain that level of cardio that he showed a few years ago against Arman Tsarukyan, which is unfortunate because, again, at the time, I thought this was a guy that if he could just shore up his striking a little bit more, that he was primed to make a big splash because his grappling is that good that he can keep up with those Dagestani guys, those Kazakhstan guys that just have that just grueling, constant pressure wrestling and grappling. But the guy I've seen lately, as far as the cardio is concerned, he just seems to be I'm not going to say a shell of himself, but he has noticeably regressed in that area. So he's currently 34. So he's still in his prime. So I'm not sure what's going on, why he hasn't been able to sustain that level of cardio that he showed previously. But if he can somehow get back to that guy and start getting some finishes, he can still make a big splash. But his time is running out because he is 34 and he is in a very stacked division, and we do know once that 35 hits, that's where that kind of cliff is for most fighters. They start to slowly go down after that. So I really hope that he can get back to that guy that I saw fight Arman Tsarukyan and continue to shore up that striking a little bit. He did show some pretty good striking, actually, in the Dan Hooker fight. Cut Dan pretty bad. Landed some good ground and pound. So his striking has improved since the Arman Tsarukyan fight, but not to the level to where he's going to be able to hang with these top 5 guys in the striking department, especially if that cardio is now an area of concern for him. But, you know, is Gamrot deserving of all the hate he gets online? You know, here's how I feel about it. He's not the only one that gets hate for having like a grapple-heavy approach. Also, the fact that he doesn't finish a lot of fighters also has garnered him a lot of criticism. But there's a lot of fans that still want the UFC to be how it was post-Pride era to about 2015-ish, where you know, you'd get these guys that, while, yeah, might be guys that have more of a wrestle-heavy approach, but it did seem to be like there were more fun striking exchanges on the feet, more dynamic finishes, both guys bloodied up, right? And now we've entered in an era where guys are becoming much more well-rounded, in the mixed martial arts, right? It's no longer these guys that just grew up as street fighters and joined a gym and tried to implement and learn some actual martial arts. And, hey, throw them in a cage together, right? And see what happens. We're getting to a time, well, we've been at a time now for a while, where these guys are actually true world-class athletes. These are now guys that compete in international competitions around the world. Many have competed in the Olympics, won world jiu-jitsu tournaments and combat sambo and karate and whatever it is you name it, right? In addition to the collegiate wrestling backgrounds, like these guys are just becoming much more well-rounded fighters. It's not the era of 2 guys getting in there and just stand and bang. You know, a lot of guys used to call it the just bleed era, right? Where, you know, hey, who's going to get knocked out first? That's what it's going to be. These guys are just more well-rounded and true world-class athletes. And if a fighter is implementing a game plan that you can use to get a victory in the UFC, whether that be standing up, using these, or a grapple-heavy approach, I mean, in my mind, it's kind of silly to be mad at that. I mean, there's been fans lately that have gone as far to say, like, well, I mean, he won with grappling, so they should award it to the other guy that might have just landed a couple strikes. Let's stop rewarding guys for grappling. I don't understand that way of thinking. Is it more exciting to see standing and striking? Of course. I prefer it as well. But if the guy's not doing anything outside the rules and the scoring criteria and following the scoring criteria to get a win, even if it's not the most exciting way, well, I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. And guys, you know, we do live in a world where kickboxing exists, where traditional boxing exists. One championship has some really, really exciting Muay Thai and traditional kickboxing. Really fun, exciting stuff. You can go watch that. I watch it. I enjoy it. BKFC exists. For those of you that really like the blood sport, the bare knuckle stuff, it exists. American boxing exists. So when guys use the scoring criteria to win, even if it's using a grapple-heavy approach, well, that just kind of comes with the sport. This is mixed martial arts. This isn't kickboxing. This isn't boxing. This isn't karate. This is mixed martial arts. And while Gamrot does implement a grapple-heavy approach, if at the end of the fight, based on the scoring criteria, if he has accumulated more points within that criteria than the other guy who maybe landed a few shots on the feet, but really not a whole lot else, well, that's just kind of how it goes. It's interesting when I hear guys say like, well, he took him down, but he didn't do anything with it. Okay, now, should that count for a lot? No, absolutely not. Especially if there wasn't a lot of damage done, and so forth, right? But it counts for something, guys. It still counts for something. And if it's a close fight, if it's dead even on the feet, both guys kind of mixing up, landing some jabs, right? Not a lot of heavy strikes, not a lot of knockdowns, right? But one fighter over the other starts taking the guy down, getting some control time. I mean, the round is going to sway for that guy that kept it pretty even on the feet, but then got some control time on the ground. That's just the way it goes. And if you have world-class grappling like a Gamrot, well, why would you not use it? Especially when his striking can be a little bit suspect from time to time. So is he going to keep it on the feet standing? Of course not. To an extent, yes, just like he did with Klein. Landed some decent shots, landed some good stuff, but, implemented that grappling to really put it over the top. I would have loved to see a finish. Unfortunately, we didn't get one, but, we'll have to see what's next for him. And I saw a few comments that, and I don't know if these guys were trolling or not, but it really didn't seem like it. Because, I get on Instagram from time to time and I see, the arguments on the MMA pages and everything. And of course, everyone is going in on Gamrot. And there was a few guys that were really, really, really trying to make a case for Klein winning that fight. I mean, when your hate for a fighter just gets to the point where you're throwing out all logic, all logic related to the scoring criteria of the UFC, I mean, I'm not even going to entertain a conversation with you about it. There were some guys that were saying, 29-28 Klein, argue with a wall. 30-27 Klein, argue with a wall. Not going to reward Gamrot for grappling. Like, guys, I mean, okay, was it the most exciting way to win a fight? No, it's not. And I try to not be that guy that lets my fandom get in the way of really calling it how I see it, regardless of how much I like or dislike a fighter. I owe it to you guys out there to give an accurate analysis and a depiction of what I truly feel like I'm seeing in the fight, regardless of where my fandom lies, right? This is not me getting on here making videos about, oh, my favorite fighter, rah, 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 right? This is, I want this to be something to where I really call it like I see it, and in these videos, I put my fandom aside, I put who I'm rooting for aside when I make these videos, right? But you're going to tell me you turned in a scorecard for Ludovic Klein in that fight? I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, what are we talking about? And so, let's look at the stats. So round one, Gamrot. Let's look at significant strikes first, then we'll get into the grappling. Significant strikes, Gamrot. 10 of 19, landed at a 52% clip. Total strikes, 27 of 43. Ludovic Klein. Significant strikes, 2 of 14. 14% clip, 6 of 19 total strikes. Let's look at the grappling now. Takedowns for Gamrot in that first round. 4 of 7, 3 minutes and 6 seconds control time. Ludovic Klein. No takedowns, no attempts, no control time. Okay, so that round, I mean, how much more clear can you get as far as who wins that round, right? That's a round for Gamrot all day. Round two, let's look at the striking. Gamrot, significant strikes, 17 of 26, landing at a 65% clip, 46 of 73 total strikes, and 1 of 1 takedowns with 4 minutes of control time. Now let's look at Klein's stats for round 2. Significant strikes, 2 of 11, had an 18% clip, landed 48 of 63 total strikes, no takedowns, no control time. Round 3, this is where Klein started to get going a little bit more with the hands. And as I previously mentioned, we started to see Gamrot start to fade a little bit. That cardio, man, again, suspect, don't know what's going on with that. But Gamrot also still outlanded him. Significant strikes, 38 of 65 and a 58% clip. 69 of 108 total strikes, and then of course 1 of 3 takedowns, a minute and 34 of control time. And then Ludovic Klein, his best round striking wise, 20 of 49 at a 40% clip, 30 of 63. Okay. If you really hate Gamrot that much, if you want to give that round to Klein, okay, be my guest, all right? I mean, the stats are the stats, okay? But I don't know how you turn in a scorecard for Klein after this fight. I mean, okay. And then what gets me too is these guys that get on here and on some of these channels and they review the stats. Oh, those stats aren't accurate, you know, or what are these guys doing with the stats? It's like, okay, I'm going to tell you guys, the stats I pull up are from UFCstats.com. These are the official stats turned in by the UFC. This isn't some third-party site, you know. I know like Verdict, the Verdict guys have their own scoring criteria, which is interesting, and I do kind of like their scoring system, but these are the official UFC stats that are turned in after the fight, okay? And so it gets me when these guys are like, oh man, you know, I'm looking at the stats and those don't make sense, that's not what really happened. And it's like, okay guys, so look, I'm looking at the official stats here, so how about you know, I'm going to throw back the whole argue with the wall, you know, how about you guys argue with the wall, because I'm looking at facts right here. I'm not looking at like, well, you know, like, yeah, well, they could have flipped the stats and, you know, they should have given him, you know, a couple more significant strikes. Like, guys, this is what they turned in. I mean, end of story, okay? Now, does sometimes what we see match? No, of course not. But on the same hand, you know, we can't just come up with our own scoring criteria based on our own personal biases and then take it as fact, right? So anyway, I thought it was a clear win for Gamrot. You know, it's really unfortunate what has happened to him because he's got a lot of skills, and I would really love to see him get back to that fierce grappler that we saw fight Arman Tsarukyan, and then you know, see what's next for him. But man, if you haven't watched that first fight between Tsarukyan and Gamrot, please go back and watch that, and then you will see why I would love to see a rematch between those two guys. Okay, because Arman's kind of in limbo right now, not sure what's going to happen with him. And then also, you know, you got Gamrot, who's also kind of like, okay, I mean, he just beat Klein, he lost to Hooker, he's kind of like in this weird position, so they're not sure what they're not sure what to do with him, right? With either of these guys. So hey, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's book those guys together and see who comes out on top. If not, book Gamrot against Joel Alvarez. That's an exciting fight. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Have a great Sunday. Thank you again. Tap that like button, hit that subscribe button. I will see you next time. And of course, we have coming up our next, before I sign off, we have a great fight coming up on Saturday. UFC 316, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley 2. I cannot wait for that rematch. And then, of course, co-main, Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. 2 title fights on one card. We've got a lot of great fights on that card. Gastelum versus Pfeiffer. That could go either way, right? Mario Batista against a premiering Patchy Mix. Guy that made a lot of noise in PFL and Bellator. Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. Man, that's a striker's delight if ever there was one, right? Bruno Silva versus Josh Van. That's got banger written all over it also. Got Johnny Walker versus Azamat Murzakanov. Okay, great fight right there. Sergey Spivak versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. So there's a lot of sneaky bangers on this fight card, guys. Looking forward to this. Of course, I'll have post-fight reaction videos. Probably won't go over all of them, but I'll go over as many as I can. So can't wait to see you guys next weekend. Watch the fights, enjoy them. Join me on my official X channel at MMA After Dark on X. I will be live tweeting. I haven't been live tweeting all of the fights, but I will be for this one because, man, there's going to be some good fights on this card, guys. Again, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you next time on MMA After Dark. Take care.